This morning I'm kind of sad because I know that this is my last time to share with you my story. But I am so thrilled for the kind of love that you guys have shown me and the questions you've asked me after chapel here. I will go home so happy knowing that I've found friends this far. So thank you very much for loving me, and thank you for coming again to listen to my story. Today, I want to begin by showing you some pictures of my world, pictures of my ministry. That's the name of my ministry, Fountain of Hope Ministries International. We have a high school, that's the high school. And then that's the junior school. You can see kids in their class. We have in each class we have 80 to 100 kids, you know. Yeah. And then that's the church that I pastor right now. I started it 2 years ago, like that, and now it looks like that. Yeah. And what's that? That's one of the discipleship conferences that we make in Uganda. And so we have a Bible school. That's some of the pastors that have graduated from our Bible school. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so yesterday, we ended with the witch doctor, if you can remember. And the one thing that I didn't tell you is that the funeral of this witch doctor, we did it on a Wednesday, and the next Sunday, the wife of the witch doctor and 4 of his kids came to our church and gave their lives to Christ. And as I speak now, one of the boys is actually playing a guitar in our church. And the mother is one of those intercessors in the church. So they are safe and okay. So today, I want to show you that I was telling friends yesterday that in Uganda, the spiritual world is a reality. Satan is always fighting God's work. And when you do ministry, you will see God doing great things, but the devil will also be working. And so as I see these victories, in 2011, I was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a kind of cancer that is common in elderly people, and it's also common with people that are HIV positive. And I'm not older, I am not HIV positive. So it was kind of weird. But again, when I look back, I had that cancer. It's a skin cancer. It's called the Kaposi sarcoma. And the time that I had that cancer, the witch doctors in Ibukeka thought that they had got me now, because there was no treatment at that point for that particular cancer. We tried to go to the hospitals around Uganda, and there was no treatment. So the witch doctors sent me someone, a church member, and they said, you know, we like your pastor. He has started a school in our village. He's teaching our kids. We want to offer him free treatment to the cancer. And I'm like, okay, so if I go and take treatment from the witch doctors, how am I going to preach to them? You know, in Uganda, it is about who is stronger. Is it the demons or is it God? So I refused their treatment. I said, I don't want your treatment. And they said, you are going to die. And a few weeks later, one of the key witch doctors in the same area was also diagnosed with the same kind of cancer. So I am like, okay, now we are going to see if they are going to treat their own. And it did not work. So I looked for treatment elsewhere, and I had help at that time. And so I went to hospice. Do you know hospice? Yeah, I went to hospice. Someone directed me, you can go in that building there. They treat cancer there. So I get to hospice, and I tell them, I give them my medical forms, and they say, you have cancer. We are sorry, we don't treat cancer here. We only prepare people to die. And I looked at this lady, and I'm like, do you think I am dying? And she said, yes, you are dying. But we can help you die without much pain. So anyway, I accepted because I had nothing else to do. And my church was crying. People were crying and praying and mixed up, and hope was gone at that time. And I was in hospice for 3 months. They were preparing me to die. So at some point, I went and told my church, I think I am dying now, and I have to accept it. And I told them, but before I die, I want you to do for me one thing. I want you to take me. I want to plant one more church. And then after I plant that church, I'll be ready to go. And so we went as a church, and friends, of course, accompanied me because they knew this was going to be my last ministry. And I remember that week, I preached the whole week. I had a wound on my left foot, and when it started bleeding, it could not stop. I always thought I was going to run out of blood. But I could preach during the day, and I wasn't in pain when I was preaching. But the pain always came immediately after I left the pulpit. And I remember it was a Friday night. I was in a small room with 2 other pastors, my friends, and the bleeding started. And this time it was too much. And these 2 pastors cried out. And one of them told me, are you going to die like one of those witch doctors? He says, no, you can't die like this. Please, can you change your mind? Don't die. We don't want you to die. And so out of desperation, I told him, I have changed my mind. I am not dying now, And so that Sunday, the church started. We had a service. We baptized 596 new believers. And it was a rainy season, and there is a lot of malaria in Uganda during rainy season. So I caught malaria during that week. I came home very weak, but the next day, Monday, I went to hospice, and I called for them. I called for 3 nurses, and they came to me because they were the one attending to me. And I told them, I've called you here because I have changed my mind. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't want to die now. And they're like, oh no, he's dying. And I say, it seems like a cancer has reached his brains, now he's not thinking straight. So I tell them, no, actually I'm thinking straight right now. But I've come to say goodbye to you because I am not going to come back here. And you're like, please, anytime you need our help, just give us a call. We will come wherever you are. And I said goodbye to them. And I went home. I remember it was around 11. And I was so weak because of malaria. When I was laying on my bed, I received a phone call from my friend who lives in the big city in Kampala. And he says, you know what? I am here. I had lunch with an Indian doctor, and I told him about your situation, and he says he can find treatment for you. And I'm like, what? So the next day, I went there, and this doctor put me on chemo for 6 months. It was painful. It's one of those things I don't want to do again, but it saved my life. And during those 6 months, This other witch doctor that had the same cancer like mine actually died. But before he died, the last week before he died, he called me. And he said, I think you are the only one that understands my world. You know the kind of pain I am going through. And he said, you have always told me about Jesus. Now I want to receive Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And so I was glad to lead this witch doctor to Christ. And 3 days later, he actually died. But you know, when I had this cancer, I was asking myself questions. Lord, where did I go wrong? Why would you let all this happen to me? Why? And it seemed like heaven was silent. You don't hear anything happening. But so to go back a little bit, in 2010, I started, after graduating from the seminary, I started a Bible school. And so I invited one of the missionaries from Kokomo, Indiana, Doug. He was actually coming to teach in my Bible school. And so when he found out that I was sick, he was so sad. And so he came back to Kokomo and shared it with the church there. And there was a doctor there, a surgeon there, who offered to do a surgery on my foot. So somehow I got a ticket to come to the US in 2013 to go to Kokomo for my surgery. So after the surgery was done, I was just rested home in Kokomo, and Doug shouted to me, you know, your friend Emmanuel is studying at Wheaton College, and it is only 3 hours drive. Do you want to go there and see him? And I'm like, of course. I would love to see him because I am dying, you know. I want to see him. So we came to see Emmanuel. I remember it was on a Thursday. And Emmanuel had been here maybe for 1 month. It was his first semester. But he's an outgoing guy. He was known by everyone on campus here. So we get here, and Emmanuel takes me to every office. This is my professor here. And, you know, he's so happy that I've come. And then we enter into this one office, Billy Graham Scholarship Office. And April, I bet April is here. Yeah, that lady over there. She was ready for me. I think Emmanuel told her I was coming. So we enter in her office, and after greeting me, she hands me papers like, I want you to come and study here. And I didn't know how to be nice to her. You know? So I get the papers, but I know for sure this is not what I want to do. I am not going to do this. I am dying. Why would I even think of going to school, you know? Because when the surgeon did the surgery in Kokomo, he told me, I did a very terrible mistake. I think you were not supposed to do this surgery. And the tumors in your foot are too many. There is nothing I really can do about it. So that scared me. And I thought, okay, this is the wrong thing I've done, and maybe it's going to irritate the tumors, and maybe I'm going to die instantly. So now she hands me those papers, and we go back to Kokomo, and I put the papers aside. And my host, Doug, tells me, maybe you should begin filling up those forms, writing essays. And I don't want to disappoint him. So I begin filling out these papers, but inside me, I know for sure it's not going to go through. And the requirements are like 1 million, you know, full list. And I'm like, I don't think I'll fulfill all this. Well, you know what? I submitted my applications, and I was accepted at Wheaton College Graduate School. And I knew even if I'm accepted, where am I going to get all the money to pay for this? I had also applied for scholarship from the Billy Graham Foundation. And one morning I received an email from April and Wanchen. They're like, yes, you got the scholarship. And I tell my wife, okay, this is serious. It looks like I am going to the US to study. And you know what? I am so scared. I wanted to do theology, but I was given intercultural studies, and I don't know what even intercultural studies is, So I'm like, okay, but let me just go there. And my friend offers to buy me a ticket. I am like, what? I was going to give this as an excuse that I don't have the ticket to take me to the US. So I come here, and I meet Cindy and other people that have been very important in my life, that have helped me so much. And the first day I went to school, I came to school here, we were given orientation, and you have to open up like 10 accounts. The Chase account, the Rival account, and this account. I'm like, how am I going to keep all these passwords, And I'm so overwhelmed. All the buildings here at that time looked the same. I got to Saga. That's the one place I liked most because there is much food there, I go to Saga and I eat food there and I can't get home. I don't know how to get to my apartment. So I kept walking around there until midnight when someone phoned me and was like, sir, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah. So somehow he figures out I was living at the extreme end of President and what's that other road? Yeah, college, yes. That end near the Brethren Church, remember? So I was living that end, and so I get there and I tell Emmanuel, I've been lost and I don't have a phone, And he says, I was so scared for you. Anyway, I begin my journey of intercultural studies, not knowing what was going to come ahead. When I attended my classes, I really enjoyed the classes because the things they were teaching me, they are the very things I wanted for my ministry in Uganda. Contextualization of the gospel, intercultural communication. These are the very things I needed for my ministry in the Muslim community. And so while I was here, remember I told you I have adopted 18 kids, but in Uganda, adoption is not understood. So my family, we live in extended families. My family did not accept these 18 kids as my own kids. As much as they see them, they love them, but they say, you need to have your own kids. So we are here, and we begin to pray with Julius, with Emmanuel, and other friends. And I go back home in March, towards the end of March, and Sarah gets pregnant. And so we go for medical checkup, and the first time the doctor tells us, you know what? It's not just one kid, they are two. I'm like, okay. And then we go back at the third time and say, you know what? They're not two. They are actually three. And so I tell Sarah, you know what? I am not going to come back to the hospital with you. because I don't know what they're going to tell me the fourth time, So she went the first time by herself, and only to find out, okay, they are three kids. So I came back here, and the professors were so amazing. I told them, they loved me, they prayed for me, and I went home on December 2nd, when the triplets were just born 2 days ago. And now, during the time when we were dedicating these kids to the Lord, I'll tell you, 27 people gave their lives to Christ because of this big miracle that God had done for us. And so after here, I go back home, knowing I am going back to my ministry, to my church in Bukeka. The church is doing very well, and everything is fine. And 2 weeks before I go, we were praying with my friend Julius, And Julia says, you know what? Yesterday God was speaking to me about you. I'm like, about me? What about me? He says, is there a place called Ginger in Uganda? And I'm like, yeah, that's my town. And he says, you know what? I think you are going to plant a church in Ginger. And I'm like, oh, no, I am not willing to go for a new church. I want to be in Bukeka. Anyway, I got home, and I happened to plant another church in Ginger town. That church that you saw there. And this coming month, we are going to celebrate making 2 years. And the church has grown from I and Sarah to now 500 people in just 2 years. I have seen God do mighty things in my life. Right now, we are training pastors in Uganda. Here, you first go for the training before you become a pastor. In Uganda, you become a pastor before you go for training. So most of the pastors there are not trained. And I feel so privileged that God has given me this vision to train pastors. Right now, we have like 84 pastors under training. And the need is much because the government has brought up a policy where now you can't be a pastor or lead a church if you don't have a theological training. So I need your prayers as we continue to train these pastors to be men and women of God. And my story is way too much. I can tell you so many stories about my life. But I just want to tell you a few lessons that I've learned over the years. Maybe, hopefully, these lessons will help you also. Lesson number 1, what I have learned is that God has a purpose behind every one of your problems. When you when you are in trouble, you have a problem, just know that God has a purpose for that problem. And always look out for that purpose. So many times we start by complaining because we are in trouble. But you know what? I have found out that God has a purpose in every problem that comes my way. The devil may intend it for evil, but God turns out things to work out for good. Number 2, don't major on the minor things of life. Let the minor things go. Focus on what really counts. Know what is important in your life. And number 3, live for something bigger than yourself. Live for the sake of others. And for me, I have this simple word, joy. You know joy? J-O-Y. And joy is Jesus first, others second, and yourself third. If you keep those things, and if you keep praying, then nothing is going to stop you from pursuing the dream that God has put in your life. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for loving me, and God bless you.